Hearty welcome to all the fraternities for joining with us again in day 1, session 2. With hopes high and spirits soaring, let us commence this session with an atmosphere of learning. Happy to invite Mrs. Vincy Mabel, Assistant Professor of English, to uphold the session in prayer.
Let's bow our heads and place ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, we glorify and thank you. You have showered us with so many blessings. Your presence continuously reminds us of your faithfulness and guidance. We humbly ask you to shower our speaker today of your greatest inspiration so that he may share the most of his knowledge and heart and soul to his respective topics. May we also observe the invaluable knowledge and put into practice what we may learn today. We pray that you bless all the committees in charge that we may able to fulfill their task responsibly. The objectives they have set may all be achieved. Your infinite blessing would mean the success of this FDP. May we be living witness of your genuine love to the enactment of the knowledge acquired through this activity. We ask all this in the precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. May the spirit of prayer drive our actions. Before we accelerate our activities, it's time to connect our spirits with the Almighty to seek blessings, guidance, and wisdom. Privileged to call upon Mrs. Eunice Salome, Assistant Professor of English, to read the verses from the Bible.
The Bible verse taken for today's reading is Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 10 to 15. For the land you are about to enter and take over is not like the land of Egypt from which you came, where you planted your seed and made irrigation ditches with your foot as in the vegetable garden. Rather, the land you will soon take over is the land of hills and valleys with plenty of rain, the land that the Lord your God cares for. He watches over it through each season of the year. If you carefully obey proper seasons, the early and late rains, so you can bring in your harvest of grain, new wine, and olive oil. He will give you lush pasture land for your livestock, and you yourself will have all you want to eat. Here ends the lesson.
Thank you, Mrs. Eunice, for the verses. To proceed further on this spectacular note, happy to invite Mr. Jude Livingston, Head of the Department of PG English, for the welcome address.
A very pleasant good afternoon to each and everyone gathered here for session 2. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a heartfelt welcome to our esteemed chief guest, distinguished faculties, and all the participants joining us for this remarkable session. Moreover, I extend a warm thank to Mrs. J.T. Vincy Mabel for leading us in prayer and Mrs. T. Eunice Salome for the soulful rendition of the Bible reading. I also welcome Mrs. K. Nimeta, who is going to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Suresh Frederick. It is with immense honor and pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our distinguished chief guest, Dr. Suresh Frederick, Associate Professor and UG Head, Department of English, Bishop Heber College, Trichy. Sir, your presence today adds a distinguished hue to our gathering as we explore the exciting intersection between environment and literature. Furthermore, I extend my warm welcome to Dr. J. Maristella, who is going to propose the vote of thanks, and my heartfelt welcome to Dr. M. Beulah Hemalada for steering us through this session. In conclusion, I invite each one of you to immerse yourself fully in this session, to absorb the wisdom imparted, and to actively participate in the discussion that will unfold. Once again, a heartfelt welcome to everyone present here today. Thank you for being part of this enriching gathering. Let us commence this session with enthusiasm and a thirst for knowledge. Thank you.
Thanks to Professor Jude Livingston for the warm welcome. I deem it a privilege to welcome and thank the distinguished resource person, Dr. Suresh Frederick, for the consent, and over to Mrs. Niveta, Assistant Professor of English, to introduce the resource person to the Forum of Fraternities.
Esteemed guests, distinguished enthusiasts, and honored colleagues of intellectual discourse, a very good afternoon to one and all. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce our speaker, Dr. Suresh Frederick, Associate Professor and UG Head of the Department of English at Bishop Heber College, Trichy, to enlighten the second session of this 7-day national level online faculty development program on recent trends in English studies. Dr. Suresh Frederick is an esteemed associate professor at Bishop Heber College, Tiruchirappalli, with a rich academic and research background. His expertise spans across various domains of literature, including Australian literature, British literature, Indian writing in English, and American literature. Dr. Frederick has been a part of the academic community since 1990 and held several prominent positions, including the Dean of Research and Development, Dean of IQAC, and the head of the division in the Department of English at Bishop Heber College. His academic journey is marked by significant achievements, including a PhD from Bharathidasan University and a postgraduate degree in journalism and mass communication from Madurai Kamaraj University. Dr. Frederick's contribution to the field are evident in his extensive publications, which include 19 journal articles, 42 books, alongside his development in research projects. He has been recognized for his outstanding research work with awards like the Best Researcher Award in the year 2020, 2021, and 2022, and Eminent Senior Researcher Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, and Editor's Choice Award. He is an active participant in professional bodies and communities like Andrew Marvel Society, OSLE, Asia TEFL, Indian Association for the Study of Australia, and Eco-Ethics International Union. Dr. Frederick's commitment to academic excellence is further highlighted by his guidance of doctoral thesis. He has guided and nurtured 34 scholars who have gone on to make their mark in academia. In welcoming Dr. Suresh Frederick, we are not only acknowledging his academic prowess, but also his significant contributions to the field of literature and research. It is with great anticipation that I'm pleased to invite Dr. Suresh Frederick to share with us his wealth of knowledge to enrich our academic discourse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Niveta, for the warm introduction. On behalf of the PG and Research Department of English, hearty thanks to you, sir, for being a part of this session. We are glad to have you as a chief guest of this session for the second time. And now the platform is yours. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I wish to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to share my pet topic. Even though I've spoken on this many times, I'm really happy to share this topic once again in midst of the learned colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity. And especially FDP is a vital one for all the teachers. It is not only vital for the teachers, but also for the research scholars. I still remember I attended a refresher course, and through that refresher course only, I got interest. I got interest into this theory called eco-criticism. So I'm really happy to share some of my views, some of my thoughts on environment and literature. Once again, I thank the organizers for considering me and also giving me a prominent time to present my views. So once again, I will tell you that the title of my talk is Environment. Environment and Literature, Paradigms and Praxis. So when you think of environment, environment is the natural world. For example, land, air, and water in which people, animals, plants live. Since prehistory, literature has been drawn to portrayals of physical environments and human interactions. And especially during the year 1960s, you find a lot of people, many writers, array of fictional and non-fictional writings concerning humans' relationship with natural world came into existence. No doubt, for the past many years now, people are so much engrossed in ecology, and ecology has become the central discourse of many studies. In India, what happened? To start with, go into the history of environmental studies in India. If you may know this or not, in India, Bishop Eber College was one of the instrumental colleges in starting a special program on environmental studies. But in the year 1991, Sri M.C. Mehta filed an application in the public interest. It can be called as a writ petition, asking Supreme Court to issue directions that the study of environmental studies become compulsory subject in schools and colleges. With the wisdom of Supreme Court, the year 1991 ordered, we accept on principle that through the medium of education, awareness of environment and its problem related to pollution should be taught as a compulsory subject. Thanks to the Supreme Court, we got this topic, we got this subject engraved into the studies. Now in UG, first year UG, students study environmental studies. And in many other colleges, environmental studies are included in the curriculum. In schools, of course, you know that it's also part of the curriculum. But what is the use of studying environmental studies or environment as a study? This, we always know that the idea of studying ecology or study of environment came into existence only around 1960s. If you want, you can make a note of this person, Paul Shepard, P-A-U-L-S-H-E-P-A-R-D. Shepard was a human ecologist and philosopher. He came up with a book called Subversive Science. So this subversive science talks about the ecological crisis. So Shepard clearly brought in a beautiful idea called ecology into the center space. You may know this or may not know this. If you think of science as a subject, ecology is the only subject pleads for non-human beings, whereas the other sciences like physics, chemistry, and other subjects plead only for human beings. So the difference you need to understand. Whenever a new invention comes in, that is for human beings. Whereas if you think of ecology that pleads for non-human beings, I wish to quote Kroll, K-R-O-L-L, where now there is man-centeredness. Ecology, as applied to man, faces the task of renewing a new balanced view. So we are in need of a balanced view. For that, ecology plays a very, very vital role. In fact, people were thinking of many quick fixes. People are not interested in going in for permanent fixtures, whereas we were thinking only about quick fixes. That's a problem. And in the year 1970, Rachel Carson, you can also make a note of this person, Rachel Carson and her Silent Spring. Silent Spring. This particular book talks about overuse of pesticide. How pesticide is made use of overuse and what is the resultant. And interestingly, this title, Silent Spring, is taken from John Keats's La Bella Dame Sans Marcy. And I wish to quote, alone and palely loitering, to the sedge is withered from the lake, and no bird sings, unquote. So no bird sings. That is the silent spring Rachel Carson is talking about. So this book talks about that uncontrolled and unexamined pesticide use was harming and killing not only animals and birds, but also human beings. So this is very vital for us, and people started thinking in these lines. So literature and environment, when you think of that, and ecology and literature, you think of it, it is very difficult to combine these two areas. Literature is very much different from science. Science and literature are poles apart, but this theory brings in a kind of culmination of these two. So this title, this term, eco-criticism, was introduced by William Rueckert. You can also make a note of this name, William, R-U-E-C-K-E-R-T, Rueckert, published his book or article, Literature and Ecology, an experiment in eco-criticism. And very interesting to note that after that, no one used that. And in the year 1989, Cyril Dortfelty revived this term. So if you look into history, you'll understand that Cyril Dortfelty is a very, very important person. She was then just a PG student, and she wanted to present a paper in WLA. And her topic was on eco-criticism. Fortunately for all of us, her paper was viewed by many people, received well by many people. And interestingly, WLA president accepted that, and there was a special meeting on eco-criticism. Okay, now we all know that eco-criticism is at the center, and Nevada University played a very, very vital role in introducing eco-criticism. And when you think of labels, eco-criticism is a term used by Americans. Britishers use the term green studies. So both are almost the same. And Peter Barry, in his book, Beginning Theory, speaks at length about eco-criticism, eco-critics. He says, I quote, for the eco-critic, nature really exists out there beyond ourselves, not needing to be ironized as a concept by enclosure, with knowing inverted commas, but actually present in an entirely entity which affects us and which we affect fatally if we mistreat it. So this environment, the study of environment, brings in a new perspective. That is, as Peter Barry rightly says, so you can have nature as a metaphor, a simile, and many other ways you can have nature, but that is not useful. Whereas nature is nature. Tiger is a tiger. Lion is a lion. If you are able to understand this importance, you'll be able to appreciate eco-criticism. So Peter Barry says, if you mistreat nature, it will affect you fatally, the fatal point. So many times we are now afraid of nature. We are afraid of pollution and other things. These are just because of human beings. So how literature portrays this, it's a very interesting point we need to bring in. And Peter Barry, another quotation, Peter Barry, I quote, the ecocentric reading focuses outside on the house and its environs, rather than inside on the owner and his psychology, I unquote. It's very clear that previously people were giving importance to psyche of human beings. Society and individuals were studied in length. But now, after the introduction of eco-criticism, as Peter Barry rightly says, eco-criticism or ecocentric reading focuses on the outside on the house and its environments, because you need to understand that ecology means study of house. So the whole world is our house. How we are going to study that, how we are going to make use of this. So this, when you think of nature, when you think of ecology, the first person comes to our mind is William Wordsworth. So William Wordsworth, many of us call him as nature poet, call him a nature poet. And like that, many of the romantic writers are called, including Robert Frost, many of them are called nature poets. So you may ask, what is new in this? Already people are writing, already romantic writers are writing on nature, and you have Robert Frost and many people writing on nature. And eco-critics have a different perspective on this. Let me start with an example from Robert Frost. So we'll take up the poem called Stopping by Woods. So it's a very interesting poem where we have on the one side, the frozen lake, other side, woods. And the horse is now standing in between and shaking its harness bell. Okay, what is wrong with this? What is wrong with this person? To ask if there is some mistake. Is there a mistake? So now it is the time for Robert Frost or the person to take a decision whether to go for beauty or duty. That is where the way my teacher taught me. When my teacher, Dr. Rupkumar Bala Singh, taught me this, he said, it is a choice between duty and beauty. Whereas eco-critics call this as it is not duty and beauty, it is between nature and nurture, nature and culture. So what is nature? So to stay in nature, beauty is nature here. But what happens to Robert Frost? What happens to the persona? The persona says, I wish to choose duty over beauty, nurture over nature. So this person who has chosen the untrodden path chooses a trodden path. That is why Alan Liu, famous critic, says nature is constructed by Wordsworth. So this point, whether nature is just a construct or not, because eco-critics do not believe in constructedness, they givenness. Nothing is already constructed. The hierarchy and everything they are not for. And that is why Liu and others call these writers as topographical writers. You can kindly make note of this, the term used by eco-critics, topographical poets or loco-descriptive poets. Topographical poem or loco-descriptive poem. But as a student of literature, how can we reject Wordsworth? Just like that, from school days onwards, people are talking about Wordsworth as a nature poet. So it is very difficult for a common man or a student of literature to accept that. So he's in Tintin Abbey, Wordsworth says, nature never did betray a heart that loved her. And in lyrical ballads, he's talking about how the budding twigs spread over their fan to catch the breezy air. And I must do all I can, that there is pleasure there. So you find the Wordsworth considering nature as a teacher, friend, many things. Even twigs have life like that. And in Prelude, he says, from nature doth emotion come, and moods and calmness equally are nature's gift. This is her glory, hence genius born to thrive by interchange of peace and excitation finds in her his best and purest friend. So we come to know of a friend, nature as a friend. In another poem, Table Stand, you find Wordsworth telling, I quote, one impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of more evil and good than all sages can, unquote. So this impulse is more important. So when you think of this, and a lot of quotations you can go, and that is why some of the critics call Wordsworth as a proto-ecologist. And this is Peter Collates. Peter Collates in Nature, Western Attitude since Ancient Times calls Wordsworth as a proto-ecologist. Because you find a kind of Copernicus-like shift in poetry. Copernicus replaced a geocentric, maybe like that. You have the human-centered poems to biocentric poems. So that is, we use the term anthropocentric. Anthropocentric, just like Copernicus did a great change, the geocentric model, like that, from anthropocentric model to biocentric model. So another person, John Coletta says, I quote, the psychology or experience of ecology before science of ecology. I wish to repeat, I've taken this quotation from Palmer, and this is by W. John Coletta. He says, the psychology or experience of ecology before the science of ecology. For that, I just want to, even before romantic writers were writing on nature, we find Andrew Marvell writing his poem, The Garden. Can you... hope you're able to see this text. How vainly men themselves amaze to win the palm, the oak, or base. So here, human beings are happy with small leaves to win the palm, the oak, the base. You know that palm leaf is given for military honors, oak leaf for political honors, and laurel for poetic honors. So what they do, human beings, I wish to read from poetry, and their incessant labor see, crowned from some single herb or tree, whose short and narrow-wed shade does proudly, prudently their toils are parade, while all the flowers and trees do close to weave the garlands of repose. So we're able to understand here the poet says, we choose a leaf over a garden or a garland. You have a lot of flowers, but unfortunately, we work very hard to get a small leaf or a small flower like that. Fair quiet have I found thee here, and innocent thy sister dear. Mistaken long I sought you then in busy company of men. Your sacred plants, if there below, only among the plants will grow. Society is all but true to this delicious solitude. Here, the poet is able to bring in this point, mistaken long, I sought you then in busy companies of men. Whenever we go to a place which is filled with nature, we do not go alone. We go in busy company of men. As a team, we go. As a family, we go. As friends, we go. He says that mistaken long. I sought you then in the company of men. So if you go in the company of men, how will you enjoy nature? How will you be part of nature? Only if you go alone, you will understand your sacred plants. If here below, so you are able to understand that the sacred plants you can see. But the problem is, the poet clearly says, society is all but rude to this delicious solitude. If Rajinikanth goes to Himalayas, nobody questions. All alone, nobody questions. But Suresh Frederick goes to Himalayas all alone. That's a question mark. Society is all but rude. Next point is, no white nor red was ever seen so amorous as their lovely green. Fond lovers, cruel as their flame, cut in their trees their mistress' name. Little alas they know or heed how far these beauties hers exceed. Now, the poet is able to bring in the juxtaposition of two colors, the combination of white and red that represents love, the amorous color, whereas the other one is he calls lovely green. Fond lovers, foolish lovers, they are cruel, he says, they cut their names on the bark. They need to understand that the trees are better. That's how Andrew Marvel says. No name shall but your own be found. It's a very interesting point Andrew Marvel raises here. No name shall but your own be found. The problem here is we people are not close to nature. We are unable to even identify a particular kind of plant, particular kind of animal. Especially, I still remember when I was a small boy, we were taken to a nearby village, I still remember. And there was a pond, the pond which was filled with snakes. We were, in fact, amazed. No, not at all. We were afraid. One small boy from the village jumped into that small pond and caught a hold of a snake. And he said, non-venomous snake, Tanni Pambu. He said, non-venomous snake. So it's very easy for a person to identify the animals, plants, if that person lives close to nature. Whereas nowadays, we are even unable to identify trees. In those days, we were living very close to many animals, many trees, but we are not living close to that. No name shall but your own be found. So you should be able to find out the name. There should not be any kind of problem. Other one is, he's also talking about how gods do fell in love with certain non-human beings, converted them to nature. He is giving example from Apollo haunted Daphne and Pan Syrinx. So both were converted into reed. They were not converted into metamorphosized into nymph, but into reed. Other one is when you live close to nature, he says, what wondrous life I lead when I get everything. But now what happens? I fall on grass. So when you are very close to nature, you are unable to be satisfied with that. Just like Adam and Eve, these people fall on grass. Meanwhile, the mind from pleasureless withdraws into its happiness, the mind that ocean where each kind. It says, unfortunately, even though you start living close to nature, you start thinking about certain resemblances. You find a horse on land and you try to find a resemblance and say it's a seahorse. Cow, sea cow. Lion, sea lion, like that. And when you start thinking like that, what happens? That annihilates. So when you go away from nature, that annihilates the thought, green thought, into a shade. And if you're able to live in close proximity with nature, you can glide. Poet says, my soul into the boughs does glide. It's like a bird sits and it prepares itself for a various light. The next journey is prepared by here. So at the end of the poem, he says, how well the skillful gardener drew flowers and herbs. This dial knew where from above the milder sun does that the fragrant zodiac run. At the end, he says, how could such sweet and wholesome hours be beckoned but their herbs and flowers? So if you are able to live close to nature, because in the beginning I told you about the environment, if you're able to live close to nature, you will be able to have wholesome hours. I will take one more poem for your consideration that is called The Mover Against Gardens. Here, Andrew Marvell is really angry with the people who are tweaking with nature. Luxurious man, he says, luxurious man to bring his vice in use. It after him, world seduce. So here he says, people are seducing the horticulturists are seducing the landscape. And from the fields, the flowers and plants allure, where nature was most plain and pure. He says that kindly allow nature as it is. Why do you want to destroy nature by tweaking? He first enclosed within garden square. So people talk about gardening. People talk about farming. And here you need to understand that they are all tweaking with nature. And our forefathers were hunter-gatherers. Hunter-gatherers were real persons living very close to nature, not the farmers, not the gardeners. Here it says, he first enclosed within the garden square, a dead and standing pool of air. He says this is a dead pool of air. If you enclose everything, that becomes a dead pool. And a more luscious earth for them to need, which stupefied them to feed. So the poem goes on like that. In the middle, he says, don't tweak with that because you find the marvel of Peru. So that is better than any other flower. Forbidden mixture here to see. No plant now knew the stock from which it came. So because of this kind of tweaking with nature, now we are in a time where we are unable to find out which one is the real stock. He grafted upon the wild the tame, that uncertain and adulterate fruit might put the palate in dispute. So what happens, even they have converted fruits, adulterated the fruits. And the poem goes on to criticize all these people. At the end, the last line says, the gods themselves with this do well. So if you're able to have a pure nature, you'll be able to live a great life. Okay, let me move on to the eco-criticism now. So from these two poems, we are able to understand that we should be able to understand nature better so that we will not tweak with nature. So now we'll come to William Ruckert. William Ruckert says, as a student of literature, we should take up a position. What is this a position? There are a lot of research works going on many spheres. So here he says that there must be shift from locus of motivation from newness or theoretical elegance or even coherence to principled relevance, unquote. I wish to repeat this. He says that William Ruckert says from newness or theoretical elegance or even coherence. And you can reject all these for the sake of principled relevance. So William Ruckert says there is a possibility of pluralism. Okay, you know that you have sociological studies, psychological study, theological study, and many other studies. But you should take a position, and that position should be, he says, principled relevance. And William Ruckert talks about Detroit syndrome, whether you know this or not. Detroit syndrome, Detroit is a place cars are made, automobile industry. Whenever a new model comes in, the industry will say that is going to be the best model. So now we have a lot of cars available. When the Swift car was there, people appreciated that and that considered as the best. Now, the new Swift came in and the company said that is going to be the best, but they are unable to sell that much. So this question, whether the new model will be the best, is a big question mark. Sometimes it is true, sometimes it is not true. So we need to understand that the newness is not important, or the elegance, theoretical elegance is not important, whereas relevance is important. With these points, I just want to move on to the next step and how to categorize nature, because we have different kinds of nature. Somebody is there in a desert, he calls, I am inside nature. If somebody is on the ship, he says, I am enjoying nature. Somebody who is sitting on a park says, I'm enjoying nature. How to categorize? Kindly make a note of this. I've taken this again from Peter Barry. Peter Barry, with the help of another critic, divides these into 4 areas. It's called outdoor environment. Kindly make a note of this. Outdoor environment. Area 1, he calls this as the wilderness. Kindly make a note of this, wilderness. Number 2 is scenic sublime. The scenic sublime. Number 3 is the countryside. The countryside. The 4th one is the domestic picturesque. The domestic picturesque. The first one, what is wilderness? You come across deserts and oceans. And scenic sublime is forests, lakes, mountains, cliffs, like that. And countryside, you have fields, woods, like that. Domestic picturesque, of course, you have the parks, gardens, and lanes. Our college, Bishop Eber College, is called Beauty Bishop. Bishop Eber College is nature. But we need to understand that falls under area number 4, parks and gardens. So now you can use your intelligence to place the poems written by many other poets. And especially if you think of romantic writers and those over we call nature poets, they write on area 2 or area 3. So no, there is no mentioning of wilderness, deserts, oceans. So area 1 is untouched. And Peter Barry talks about this in length. And he says that nature is more in area 1, culture is more in area 4. I told you in the beginning, Peter Barry talks about nature and culture. Whereas William Rooker talks about nature versus culture. And William Rooker says, culture is a predator. Culture predates on nature. And here we have wilderness, more sublime, and you have more of nature, wilderness. Whereas when you come to domestic picturesque, because we have parks, gardens, lanes, because, you know, in a park, man decides. In a garden, the gardener decides which plant to plant, or which kind of tree can be there and which kind of grass can be there. Okay. The common grass cannot be found in a kind of ordinary garden. You need to find, you will find different kinds of grass which are there. So with this 4 areas, I just want to make my first point, that is called eco-consciousness. So eco-critics study eco-consciousness, or the consciousness on the environment. So how will you be conscious on the environment? So here eco-critics make use of the term symbiosis. symbiosis, symbiosis. Symbiosis is living in amity. It's like a community will live with each other. Whereas the same term is used by many other scientists, ecologists, especially Odom, famous ecologist, famous philosopher. Odom talks about this. Kindly make note of this. In science, they use the term mutualism. mutualism, mutualism. Odom says in mutualism, both populations benefit and have become completely dependent on each other, I unquote. And even William Rooker says it is this cooperative arrangement, this symbiosis, this cooperative arrangement that permits the use of energy, raising the levels of matter, I unquote. So only if there is mutualism, only if there is symbiosis, there is better living possibilities. And in science, you have mutualism. Second one is parasitism, where one species is benefited and lives on the other species, and only one species is benefited, other one is harmed. So that is called parasitism. First one is mutualism, second one is parasitism, and third one is commensalism. And where one species is benefited, but other one is not been affected. So that is also there. As a study, you can also think of how we can study this with the help of mutualism, parasitism, and commensalism. And when you think of forefathers, I told you, many of them were hunter-gatherers. So a hunter-gathering community lived in amity with nature, and a black elk, the chieftain of an American tribe, says the 2-legged and the 4-legged lived like relatives. And there are plenty for them and plenty for us. I wish to quote this again. Black elk, the chieftain of an American Indian tribe, says the 2-legged and 4-legged lived like kith and kin. So they lived like relatives, and plenty for them and plenty for us. So this kind of living in close proximity is not found in this modern world. For this, we'll move on to Charles Harper. And Charles Harper is an Australian poet, and he is always called one of the best poets by Judith Wright. And Charles Harper differs from many of his contemporaries, and he has written on the symbiotic relationship between nature and the Australian Aborigines. And it's very interesting. If you read his works, you'll be able to understand that. And Charles Harper has written a beautiful poem called An Aboriginal Mother's Lament. So here in this poem, you find the Aboriginal mother running away from the white man's blood-thirsty harshness. I wish to read the poem for you, a few lines. Still further would I fly, my child, to make thee safer yet from unsparing white man, with his dread hand murder wet. So in this poem, the unsparing white man is clearly portrayed. I just do not want to go into the poem per se, but I just want to tell you the weapons used by the Aborigines in the poem. So the natives used a weapon called tomahawk. Okay, that is mentioned in the line 29. Then spear. So tomahawk is a type of axe. So the Aborigines, for hunting, they were using an axe. For hunting fish, they were using spears. So that was their harshest possible weapons they were using. Whereas if you read Woodguru Nunukal and her poem, in that one, she talks about that poem is entitled No More Boomerang. No More Boomerang. I wish to read the poem for you. No more boomerang, no more spear. Now all civilized color bar and beer. No more corby, gay dance and din. And now we got movies and paid to go in. No more sharing what the hunters brings. Now we work for money and pay it back for things. Now we track bosses to catch a few bob. So in this poem, the first few lines talk about how human beings have to work very hard, whereas previously the hunters were able to share their maybe hunted animals, and they were able to live a very, very happy life. And you kindly read that poem when you find time. And at the end of the poem, she talks about lay down Umera, lay down the Wadi. No, we got atom bomb and everybody. So lay down the Umera, lay down the Wadi. So what is this? The Umera is a throwing stick used to launch spear, and Wadi is an Aboriginal club. So it's used for punishment. Okay, the English people or the Britishers or the colonizers, I should use the word colonizers, said, don't use this. It's too harsh. Don't use Umera. Don't use Wadi, because they're going to use atom bomb. So we're going to kill everybody. That is the reality. So this is a pathetic condition. So the unsparing white man we saw in the beginning is unwilling to give up this kind of total oneness. I use the word symbiosis. Symbiosis. So they are unwilling to allow symbiosis into the lives of people. And next one is, I just want to introduce another term called domestication. So here I'm going to deal with wildness versus domestication, or destruction of nature or destruction of environment. So what happens is a very, very simple point I just want to make. Wildness. Gary Snyder, I just want to quote a critic called Gary Snyder. Gary Snyder says, I quote, wildness can said to be the essential nature of nature. So wildness is the essential nature of nature, I quote. That's from Coupe. So people have to understand that nature is there and essential nature is wildness. Unfortunately, people do not agree to this. And Terry Gifford asserts, I quote, wild as in wild ecosystem, richly interconnected, interdependent, and incredibly complex, unquote. I wish to repeat this. Wild as in wild ecosystem, richly interconnected. So wild means it is interconnectedness. And second one is interdependent. So wild means it is interconnected, interdependent, and third one is incredibly complex. It is very difficult for a human being to understand. So that is why ignoring the call of nature, ignoring this kind of interconnectedness, ignoring the interdependence, or ignoring the incredibly complex situation, people go for domestication. For this, I just want to take up a story by Henry Lawson. Henry Lawson is an iconic Australian writer. He is known for his sketch writing, sketch stories. He has written a lot of sketch stories. I used to take up a story called The Loaded Dog. I quote, Loaded Dog. And this is about three gold miners. Gold miners. One is Dave Reagan. Second one is Jim Bentley. And third one is Andy Page. So Dave Reagan, Jim Bentley, and Andy Page are very close friends. And they were working in a creek, a stony creek. And one day what happens, this, before that, I wish to tell you that these people have a puppy or a dog. And even though it's a big dog, these people consider this as a puppy because of the behavior, the foolish behavior. That's how they call it. They call this as an overgrown pup, a foolish, a big foolish, four-footed mate. But they have taken the dog as a mate. And one day, what happens? One of them wanted to eat fish. Okay, that is the creek. The creek is full of fish. So, you know that how to go for fishing. You have different methods of doing it. Whereas these people, what they do is they prepare a bomb. They prepare a bomb and they want to have it and throw it into the water so that when it bursts, they can take the fish from this. So this is really a kind of a blatant way of destroying nature. How people destroy nature. This is how the Australians, when they started occupying Australian landscape, did not mean to help anyway the landscape. They, in fact, destroyed nature. So this is one of the examples how nature was destroyed. Just to take hold of a few fish, they destroy nature. When you think of the same thing, Old Man of the Sea, the American, when you go to the American literature, how Santiago also wants to go for a big fish instead of a small fish. So this is, I'm going to talk about that later on commodification. And this is also an example which we can think during this deliberation. So Dave Reagan, Jim Bentley, Andy Page, they prepare a bomb in such a way it will not become wet. So they want to just fish. Fishing is uppermost in their minds. But what happens? They prepare a crude bomb. So this talks about the way the fishing devices, how they are going to hurt the land. At this juncture, I just want to go into another topic and with the help of this story. And again, Peter Barry introduces this term called dark greens and light greens. So dark greens are out and out ecologists. Okay, deep ecologists, I should say. I do not want to explain that. Kindly make a note of this. And that is, they want to have nature alone. Other one is light greens. These people are called environmentalists. Okay, so that's the difference one. Maybe I used to make this very simple to dark greens and light greens. One is NO technology, dark greens, no technology. Light greens, KNOW technology, no technology, and make use of it. So in this story, what happens? They do not understand the value of technology. They go on to blast. But the story is a funny story, and that overgrown pup takes over and full of fun. The idiots run away from that place. Idiots who wanted to destroy nature were unable to destroy nature. That is it. So here, you need to understand that domestication of land and how these people are able to domesticate land, not only land, but also animals. Domestication is clearly a term used for animals. So what is this domestication all about? So when this started, it's a long history for this. So we come to know through history that the earliest known evidence of a domesticated dog is the jawbone found in a cave in Ireland, in Iraq. That is dated about 12,000 years ago. So this happened 12,000 years ago, and it is very much different from wolf. So we are able to understand how that was domesticated. Now you think of the dog as become part and parcel of the world. So across the cultures, we have dogs as part of their life. And again, when you think of domestication, where you choose a dog, a livestock, okay, you go for, that should have certain abilities. If the dog should be a kind of hunting dog, or should be able to control rodents, guarding, helping, like that. You have a lot of precise wants. With that only, a hound is chosen. A dog is chosen. And we always called man's best friend is dog. But we really do not know whose best friend is man. So this story, which talks about how dog, even though it is called a foolish dog, it's not foolish, and it's able to behave properly and able to help people from destroying nature. That's also another story, two dogs and a fence. Again, Lawson. I deliberately choose Australian literature, and in the introduction part, thank you, ma'am, for introducing me. In a way, I don't know whether I am worthy of. I'm interested in Australian literature, and I've taken many examples from Australian literature and some from American literature. This is also another story, Lawson, Henry Lawson, the sketch story writer. And he has written this beautiful story, Two Dogs and a Fence. What happens in this story? There is a dog inside the wall, fence, and other one is outside the fence. Dog which is inside is very angry. It shouts and shouts and shouts. And as if when it comes out, it's going to kill that other dog. Okay. And whereas the story goes on, at the end of the story, the story writer, Lawson, says, if they come in nature, come as friends, then what will happen? They will vouch friendship. So the domestication is the root cause of this kind of behavior. So wildness should be preserved. Okay, when nature is wilderness, and for animals it is wildness, should be preserved. I wish to quote again the wild to denote the unfettered aggressive behavior. In fact, wildness is more complex than the aggressive behavior. Gary Snyder says, wildness can be said to be the essential nature of nature. That's what I told you in the beginning. So without wildness, there is no nature. So when you think of domestication, another famous poem is "The Tame Bird Was in a Cage." Kindly make note of this. The tame bird was in a cage. This is written by Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore has written this beautiful poem, and there are two birds. One bird is within the cage, other bird is outside the cage. The bird which is inside the cage is a tame bird. That is how Rabindranath Tagore calls it, tame bird, or I should say domesticated bird. Whereas the other bird is a free bird, according to Rabindranath Tagore. I'll call it a wild bird. Okay, so only the labels change. Both are the same. Tame bird. Tame bird is the domesticated bird. Free bird is a wild bird. I wish to read from the poem. The tame bird was in a cage. The free bird was in a forest. They meet when the time came. It was a degree of fate. The free bird cries, "Oh, love, let us fly to the woods." Cage bird whispers, "Come hither, let us both live in the cage." See the total ignorance on the part of the caged bird. Free bird says, "Let us fly." You can fly because now the doors are open. The bird which is inside can come out. But the bird which is inside says, "No, no, no, come hither. Let us live in the cage." And the free bird says, "Among the birds, where is the room to spread one's wings?" Says, "How will I open my wings?" "Alas," cries the caged bird, "I should not know where to sit perched in the sky." The free bird is unable to open its wings, whereas the bird which is inside says, "Where will I sit?" Where it's unable to even notice those beautiful branches, boughs which are there. Free bird cries, "My darling, sing the songs of the woods." Caged bird says, "Sit by side, I'll teach you the speech of the learned." See how there is a great difference. One bird can sing, other bird cannot sing. It can only talk. Parrots talk. So that talk comes from the speeches of the learned, according to the poem. The forest bird cries, "No, oh, alas, no. Songs can never be taught." Cage bird says, "Alas for me, I know not the songs of the woodlands." So the bird says, "No, no, yeah, you can't teach songs." But the other bird says, "No, I cannot learn from the songs." So it's very interesting to see how the difference between these two birds, their love is intense. So they want to somehow come out of that. The last lines are very, very pathetic. And the cage bird says, "Alas, my wings are powerless and dead." So previous line says, I fear the closed doors of a cage." Free bird is unable to come in, whereas the bird which is inside says, "Alas, my wings are powerless and dead." See the plight of a bird. Bird should fly, but the bird is unable to fly. There will be a time you will have the fish unable to swim. Like domestication will destroy the very, very fabric of life, fabric of non-human being. So here that's beautifully portrayed. So the same idea, the two dogs on a fence, so you're able to understand how the behavior of human beings have corrupted the very nature of animals. There you find the dogs are aggressive. And I used to quote from the story. Then they go out and you can hear them smiles off. like a Chinese war. Okay, and inside dog to get out of this bowel and remove the internal organs of him. So it's going to cut and kill that animal. But when they come out, yet if they're same two dogs, okay, not two different dogs, same two dogs were to meet casually outside, they might get clumsy, chummy at once. So they become very close friends and be the best of friends and swear everlasting mateship and take each other home, unquote. So this story says the dogs which are domesticated behave in a different way. The corruption of human beings have encroached and influenced these people, these animals. They are unable to come out of it. Whereas when they are free, you see in the bird, which can fly, which can sing the songs of the wild, which can sit anywhere, perch on any place. And here also dog, which is totally free. When they come out, both of them, when they come out, what they do, the same two dogs were to meet casually outside, they might get chummy. Okay, they become very close and be the best of friends, swear everlasting mateship, and take each other home. So that kind of friendship is talking about. So this can be easily understood by how nature is preserved when there is total freedom. Okay, so what happens? The term host is usually used for larger mate, that is macro, and smaller one is called micro. And Odom in his book, again, kindly make note of this. This book is very important, even though this is an ecology book. This is useful for eco-criticism. To study environment. To study environment, we need this book. So what is the name of the book? Fundamentals of Ecology by Eugene P. Odum. I wish to quote from Odum, since no organism can exist by itself without an environment, our first principle may be, well, deal with interrelation, I unquote. Kindly note this, interrelation, that's more important. Here, both the symbionts, okay, they were at loggerheads when they are given as domestication, and they are given to domestication. They become domesticated dogs and they become loggerheads. Whereas when it comes to freedom, let alone without the influence of human beings, both these dogs are in amity. So we studied in the beginning. Hope you're able to remember the term we used. What's the term? Symbiosis. Symbiosis. And the other one is mutualism, where you're able to help the wild ones. So clearly the domestication has destroyed the very fabric of nature. I wish to quote William Ruckert. I quote, the ecosphere, there is a reciprocational interdependence. So you need to have interdependence. In wilderness, in wildness, you have interdependence of one life process upon another. And there is a mutual interconnected development of all the earth system, I unquote. So this is how I wish to quote another one. If the man understands the value of interconnectedness, he can live a contented life on the face of biosphere, or else he has to survive life many dangers from nature. I wish to quote this again. If the man understands the value of interconnectedness, he can live a contented life on the face of the biosphere, or else he has to survive life facing many dangers from nature, I unquote. So next one is I move on from wilderness. Then that topic I told you, domestication. Domestication to commodification. Domestication to commodification. So usually for commodification, there are many examples given. Even Old Man on the Sea can be taken as a prime example. So this old man, Santiago, wanted to have a big fish. Just restating that. Previously, I told you. And that is why. Because he wanted to make this as a commodity. Even though he was living close to nature, even though he can live close to nature by eating fish, he wanted to sell and he wanted to boast his pride. That is why he goes to catch hold of a big fish. Some people say, okay, that fisherman Santiago was even speaking to the fish. Don't you think that is a good relationship? Okay, that's a good relationship. Even a butcher will pray before killing the goat. That's what's the difference? A butcher prays to God before killing a goat. Here also you find a similarity. This old man kills this marlin, okay, intentionally or unintentionally. So we need to understand that domestication is a bane. Domestication and commodification, you need to understand commodification is a bane. It's a negative thing for people. Now I move on to another poem, Silkworms. So this is by Douglas Stewart, another new literature writer. You may know this writer or not. Silkworms. Hope you're able to see the poem now. Yes. All their lives in a box. What generations? What centuries of masters, not meaning to be cruel, but needing the labor, taught these centuries creatures such patience. See this, the writer says, what generation? All their lives in a box. Silkworms, they live in a box. He says the masters are the human beings, masters, are not cruel. I disagree with the writer. They are cruel. They are cruel, not meaning to be cruel, but needing the labor. Yes, this is called domestication. They need the labor of non-human beings. Okay, so that is why they become cruel. Okay, whereas the poet says they are not really, the intention is not bad. That's what he says. No. Even though the intention is not bad, the practice is bad. So that becomes a bad practice. They taught these people, these creatures, patience. That now, though sunlight strikes on the ice, dark jewel, or moonlight breathes on the wings, they do not stare, but the ghosts of moth crouch silent there. So he says that even though the sunlight comes in, anything happens, it is unable to move, unwilling to move, I should say, unwilling to move. The poet says, look, it is a child's toy. There is no lid even. They can climb, they can fly. Whole world is theirs. It's like similar to the plight of the caged bird, which cannot fly. Same way, here the poet says this silkworm is like a child's toy. This cannot move out. This cannot go out. This cannot, unwilling to go, but hush. They say to themselves, we are in prison. There is no word to tell them that they are free, and they are not. Ancestral voices bind them in dream too deep for wild or word to find them. He says that, the poet beautifully says that they are in prison. Even though the prison is open, they can anyway come out. There is no word to tell them that they are free. So nobody is going to tell them that they are free. Even somebody says they are free, they are not. Why? Because their ancestral voices bind them. Because of the previous experience, they are unwilling to come out. Okay, so they are inside the prison, but the prisons are open. They are free, in fact, but they cannot come out. What's the reason for this kind of annoyance, this kind of aggression on these non-human beings? Because of domestication. Now we are studying domestication, the commodification, the domestication has brought in commodification. Even in the young, he's like a little dragon rambling and green upon mulberry leaf, so full of life. It seems the voice has spoken. So when that was a small dragon, little dragon rambling, green upon mulberry bush, mulberry leaf, full of life. But what happens? The voice has spoken. They hide themselves. Where there is food, where they are safe. And the voice whispers, spin the cocoon, sleep, sleep. You shall be wrapped in me soon, unquote. It is like, the domestication of dogs. So you find these dogs living in the munificence, the large-heartedness of the human beings. So they are looking into the eyes of the masters. Here, the masters are unknown and masters are not there, but they have done the job of commodification, domestication and commodification. So now they just want to eat. Okay, they want to eat, live, and reproduce. That's it. Eat, sleep, hoard, and reproduce. Eat, sleep, reproduce. So they want to live as nothing is there. Now is there are, when they wake up from the long swoon, the pale curved wings are marked in a pattern of leaves, shady for trees, white for the dance of moon. And when the summer night, Buddleia gives its nectar like lilac wine for insects mating, they drink its fragrance, shiver, impatient with waiting. So their thing is to eat, and this Buddleia, that's my mulberry bush, where it gives some nectar and lilac wine. So their main agenda is to mate and reproduce so that the human beings will get more. They stir, they think they will go. They remember it is forbidden. They remember that forbidden. It was forbidden to ever go out. Hands are on guard outside, like clap of thunder. The ancestor voice says, don't, and they do not. Still, the night calls them to unimbibable bliss, but there is terror around them, the vast, the abyss. So what happens is they remember it was forbidden. So from the first stanza, we're able to understand that the masters have the voice. Masters have the grip. They cannot come out because they are forbidden. Hands are on the god. Clap of thunder, that somebody will kill that moth. When that comes out, that will be killed. So here is the tribe. They know in their own known place, they are gentle and kind together. They are safe forever. So their aim is to live a safe life. That's all. And all shall be answered at last when they embrace. White moth moves closer to another, lover to lover. There is that pang of joy on the edge of dying. So they're going to anyway die. the soft wings where they dream that they are dying. So this is the last line, that they are not dead, but they're dreaming of death. This is purely because of commodification. They have domesticated, they cannot come out. The worms have become moths, silkworms have become moths, and they know that their ancestral voice has forbidden them from moving from that place. So they die without any kind of enjoyment, they die. So this this poem gives us the idea of how domestication of animals are not good. Previously, we saw a dog. Now it is a worm. Okay, and next one is the domestication of land. So this is a poem written. It's a Tamil poem. It's a translated poem. The name of the poem is "The Bear Dam." In Tamil, it is called Mottayanai. It is translated by Nirmal Selvamani. So Nirmal Selvamani sir has translated many of these beautiful Tamil poems into English. And this poem goes like this. With the dry lands becoming wet, there is no shade anymore. Is it that just that there is no shade, no millet, no maize, no god that climbs the blooms in the ever evening? So now, what happened when there was water in Kaveri? They've come up with a lot of tributaries, and on one such tributary, a dam was built. Now there is no water for many, many years together, so nobody is taking care of that particular dam. But the problem is, to build this land, they have destroyed the whole landscape. Nirmal Selvamani talks about his theory called Neo-Thinai poetics. Kindly make note of this theory, Neo-Thinai poetics. Previously, he called this as oikopoetics. Now he calls this as Puttinai. But I go with Neo-Thinai poetics. In that one, he talks about 3 types of relationships. One is integrative relationship. Second one is hierarchic relationship. And third one is anarchic relationship. What is an integrative relationship? So this we can go to symbiosis. We already studied symbiosis. Hope you remember that. Yes. Do you remember that? Symbiosis. What is the other name for symbiosis? That is mutualism. Okay, hope you're able to understand. So symbiosis, mutualism. Here, Nirmal Selvamani calls this as integrative relationship. So in this one, human beings and non-human beings lived like kith and kin. There was vertical as well as hierarchical relationship. In certain places, human beings were at the top. In certain places, non-human beings were at the top. There was a kind of relationship, as we saw in wilderness. It is interconnected. Same way, here you have the interconnectedness. Second one is hierarchic. So at a time when people wanted to have only wetlands. In Tamil, they call this Nanjai and Punjai. Okay, here Nirmal Selvamani makes use of these 2 terms, Nanjai and Punjai. One is wetland, other one is dry land. Okay, so these dry lands have their own maybe grazes. They have a lot of particular things like millets, maize, gourds, partridges, birds like partridges. You have these groundnut plants and your pigeons. You have cactus, cuckoos, squirrels, many things, many birds, many plants, many trees, unique to dry lands. You need to understand that is the difference between a dry land and a fallow land. Okay, we think that this dry land is a fallow land. No, not at all. Nanjai has its own positive things. Punjai has its own positive things. So to make this dry land into wetland, this dam was built. Okay, to make this, there was total deforestation. They destroyed the whole landscape to build this big monumental dam. But unfortunately, now there is no water. The dam is now a bare dam. I just want to read the poem now for you. The dry land's becoming wet. There is no shade anymore. Is it just that there is no shade? No millet, no maize, no god climbs the blooms in the evening. No partridge stare out suddenly from the underground groundnut plants. The slighted sound. No pigeons. The shade. The neem among the cactus hedges. Even the neem trees are gone. And no cuckolds, no quails, no cassia, no croton. No, so to make the coil sing. The bad dams, this again, you need to note this. The bad dams built on the small stream has laid waste our village. Previously, the people of the dry lands, the Punjai lands, were happy. They were very close to nature. They were enjoying the special kind of grains, special kind of plants, special kind of birds like quails, and also many other dams which were there. But what has happened now, the dams on Kaveri had destroyed forests far and wide. We lost our forest for rice, and then no rain. Now no forest, no rice. I wish to repeat this again. We lost our forest for rice. So we just deforestation took place, and they destroyed their plants to bring in water. Nanjai, Punjai lands into Nanjai lands. Also, they brought in a lot of paddy fields. Okay, they cleared the landscape and brought in paddy fields. So what has happened now? There is no rain, no forest, and no rice. So this is the ultimate thing which happens to human beings. So I just want to conclude my talk with a few more points so that people will be able to ask some questions. I'm here to answer those questions. So to begin with, I told you how nature is very, very important, and how people were living very close to nature. I told you about how Aborigines were living very close to nature, and the writers, and they were writing. Okay, not only nature writers, they are called topographical writers or loco-descriptive writers, poets. So this is according to eco-critics. And they were talking about nature, but nature was just at the periphery. Self was at the center. Even though these people were writing like that, I told you, Wordsworth can be called this the psychology or the experience of ecology before science of ecology. So he can be called a proto-ecologist. But even before Wordsworth, Robert Frost, and others, you have Andrew Marvell. I'm part of this Andrew Marvell Society. It's a very beautiful society in US. They have a lot of conferences, and they bring in focus Andrew Marvell's excellent writings. So here, this example, we got it from The Garden. And the second one is, hope you remember, the second example I gave from The Movers Against Gardens. So there he talks about individuals as luxurious man. And he calls them as wicked people. The behavior is wise, V-I-C, wise, and how they have tweaked with nature. And next one is, I told you about symbiosis. Before that, I told you about outdoor environment. 4 types. One is wilderness, second was scenic sublime, and third one is the countryside, and the fourth one is domestic picturesque. So you're able to categorize, and in the first one, you have more of nature, and the last one more of culture. That is interlinking of all things, because you have the fields, woods, cliffs, mountains, etc., etc. And second one I told you about is eco-consciousness, where I told you about symbiosis, that is living in amity, and also gave certain technical terms, scientific terms from biology. One is mutualism, and second one is parasitism, and then the last one is commensalism. So three are very, very important. And I told you how people were living in amity as a symbiotic relationship. You can see in case of black elk, Aborigines or American Indian tribe. He said two-legged and four-legged lived like kith and kin. So that kind of relationship, Palmer in his book talks about this. And these people are called hunter-gatherers, live very close to nature. And next example was from Aboriginal Mother's Lament. I told you how these people are using some instruments, Aboriginal instruments, and they were not really harsh. Whereas these white people were harsh, unsparing men. And they were using tomahawk, spears, and all these things. But in the next poem talks about how boomerang was said. They said, don't use boomerang, don't use spear, don't use clubs. Okay, all these at the end they said, we are going to make use of atom bomb. So these people are having atom bomb. Boomerang is a throwing stick used to launch a spear. And Wadi is also an Aboriginal club. And I told you about wilderness versus domestication and destruction of nature. For that, I gave examples from Henry Lawson, an iconic writer, Australian writer. And I told you the story of Dave Reagan, Jim Bentley, and Andy Page, and the loaded dog. I try to remember the story, loaded dog. All sketch stories, very simple. I can easily read them. And how these people wanted to eat fish by destroying the whole landscape. There I told you about dark green and light greens. Dark greens are no technology versus KNOW technology. So they are the light greens. So my desire is to at least to understand what is this light green, which one is good for the biosphere. Nowadays, you find people are using EVs. That awareness is good. Now, people move from cars which use petrol or any other kind of fuel which is detrimental to human beings. They are making use of EVs, electrical vehicles. So that's good for the biosphere. And also another one is the dog, two dogs and a fence. I told you about how the relationship, when they are apart, and if there is a fence, they fight like anything. But when there's a chance, they become very good friends. So that is again Henry Lawson. Another one is from Indian writer, the iconic writer. We all love this writer, Rabindranath Tagore. The tame bird was in a cage. He beautifully brings in the idea of how the domesticated bird is killed, mentally killed, physically killed, because that loses the very fabric, the very nature of nature. So that's again, we need to understand that. And the last one is, before that, I told you about the old man of the sea. And the last example I gave was, so last but one is silkworms. How these worms live. And they live as a child's toy. The poet beautifully brings in the idea of child's toy. Centuries of what generation, what centuries of masters, not meaning to be cruel, but needing their labor. So these people, human beings, are selfish people. That's why we use the word anthropocentric. They want everything from nature. You can surely read the old mage's speech, the old mage's speech from the animal form. The old major clearly says human beings are not useful, whereas animals are useful. Whether they're alive or dead, non-human beings are useful, whereas human beings are not useful, useless immediately when they die. That kind of thing, beautifully, that awareness is you can derive from this talk. Of course, people may say, this is cannot be studied like this. So eco-criticism deals with reading against the grain. Reading against the grain, and you need to understand that a dog is a dog. Okay, in the beginning I told you, Peter Barry's quotation, eco-critics feel that you cannot put nature within double quotes. A dog is a dog. Okay, animal is an animal. Non-human being is a non-human being. You cannot make it into a metaphor, a simile. So all this can be studied as it is. Of course, that is also a study. You have a lot of study, symbolic study. That is another study. But I'm not questioning that. But this is another study where you need to study this, these animals with eyes, the tools given by eco-criticism. Okay, just like neo-historism, Peter Barry also talks about this in his book. Eco-criticism talks about how neo-historis. Okay, in neo-historism, what happens? History is taken equivalent to the primary text. Okay, history text is equivalent to literary text. Same way here, literary text is equivalent to science text, zoology text, biology text, environmental studies text, biotechnology text. So it's all equivalent. Okay, so nothing is subservient. Nothing is that much secondary source. All are equal. At the end, I told you the Bad Dam, very interesting poem, translated by Professor Nirmal Selvamani and written by Pala Malai. Pala Malai has written this Mottai Anai, and where he says the last lines are, we lost our rice, forest for rice, then no rain, now no forest and no rice. So I wish to tell you as concluding points, this biosphere is plagued with many environmental problems. Eco-criticism has come as a boon to study this, and that can also offer some solutions. So the problems are in plenty, and we need to study them with the help of the text which is given to us. I wish to conclude my talk with a quote. It is not mind-bending or mind-blowing or mind-boggling. It is mind-expanding. So you need to understand that eco-criticism is mind-expanding. So with the help of eco-critical study, that can be a kind of expansion of our wisdom. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, queries, you can post them. I am ready to answer. So there are a few suggestions. Domestication of land by settling on the land. Okay, that is given. Sir, I'm just adding to the word Lawson. Okay, thank you. Any other observation? I have a few more minutes. Okay, I'm really happy to meet you all through this virtual medium. And eco-criticism is a new area. It is it is at the starting point. And Peter Barry also clearly says at the end of his essay says that it is not like the criticism like other previous like psychological study or sociological study, because psychological study has Freud, Lacan, and many other names and a lot of jargons to harp on. Whereas eco-criticism is at the beginning, and we have certain names like William Ruckert, and he's not a maybe what shall I say? He has written that essay, and after that, there are no such great writings from him. But you have Cheryl Glotfelty, and Harold Fromm, and these people have edited many books. And other one is you have a lot of other writers, including from India. You have Nirmal Selvamani. Usually, what happens is we people do not give importance to Indian theories. Whenever it is American, people immediately harp on that and love to work on that. But unfortunately, people are unable to think of such Indian writing, Indian theology, sorry, theorists. So kindly, I request you to read Neo-Thenai Poetics. This will be of great help to you. Now I have a question from the audience. Greetings, sir. Could you suggest some Indian theoretical works? So that's what I told you. Just precisely, I'm telling you. You just read Neo-Thenai Poetics. So Professor Nirmal Selvamani. Yes, you're right. He was working in Madras Christian College, and later on he went on to Central University. Now, happily retired professor. You can invite him for any talk, and his works are really heart-stirring, and you can really make use of his theory. Especially we in our college, in Bishop Heba College, we have prescribed Neo-Thenai Poetics. These books are available in NCBH and are also online. So you can also try to buy them online. Any other suggestions, any other questions from your side?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please shed some light on research in eco-criticism under this domain? What are the topics that are needed to be researched?
Thank you for your question. Now people are talking about blue humanities, okay, but I just went on to talk about only the basics. Okay, there I told you about this. Nirmal Selvamani's study can be studied as 3 types of relationships. So I've seen some of the PhD scholars worked on or working on 3 types of relationships. One is the hierarchic, anarchic, and integrative. But because we are living in a time where it is more of anarchic. Nirmal Selvamani clearly says about anarchic relationship. So that can be studied. Apart from that, in the beginning, I told you about commodification. So you can take any work and study how animals are commodified, how landscape is commodified, and because of commodification, what kind of result, pollution, and all these things can be studied. And before that, I told you about symbiosis. Okay, is there a work which deals with symbiosis, relationship between man and human being and non-human being? Is there a kind of relationship? And also gave examples from destruction of nature, how people destroy nature. Now I find many people working on post-colonial eco-criticism. I call this as POCO eco-criticism. You can just refer and find out from Google. And also there are a few essays. One book is published by Authors Press, New Delhi, Contemporary Contemplations on Eco-Literature. Contemporary Contemplations on Eco-Literature. In that one, you find this essay, POCO Eco-Critical Study. Some of my words are working on that. A couple of my words, one is working on an Australian writer, other one is working on an Aboriginal writer. So you can also make use of that. So a lot of theoretical frameworks are available. And my suggestion would be to read the book first, then whichever framework fits. Also, you have eco-theology, another great area, because Bible is always considered as an anthropocentric book by others, but whereas these eco-theologists consider Bible as a biocentric book. How they're trying to do it's very interesting. They talk about the stewardship. So you can study the stewardship, how animals are taken care by human beings. But eco-critics do not consider stewardship as biocentric value, but eco-theologists do consider. So you can also do that. Is it okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, I have another one question.
Sure.
People from other domain like environmental science, they are also doing research in this field. How people from literature can make the research valuable like them? Like when we compare the results, we are looking into narratives and they are working directly in the field. So what are the things that can be added into our research or thesis to make it more valuable?
Actually, I gave this example, just told you that it is like a new historism, where literature is equivalent to any science book. So if a writer is working, has written something on a bird, okay, you can take a zoology book and compare. Okay, you can just take the labels from the zoology book, whether the poet is able to do justice to that animal or not, that non-human being or not. You should be able to do that. So at the beginning, I told you, this is the environment. You are going to look into the environment. We are not confident of our environment because we are not living close to this environment, nature. That's a problem. So if you're able to bring in scientific evidences to a literary text, then that is valuable. Surely, I see some of my people publishing in valuable ideas, comparing science texts. Okay, so you don't consider science texts as secondary ones. They're all equal ones. If you do that, people will appreciate, and that will have universal value. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you very much. Ma'am? Just want to know whether hosts are there. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks to you, sir, for the enlivening session and sparking awareness on ceremony STNI 2. We, the department members, recognize the national seminar organized on 7th May 2022, in which you, the resource person, ignited awareness on the concept of nature in literature. We appreciate your valuable contribution to this 7-day national level faculty development program organized by the PG and Research Department of English. Thank you so much, sir, again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Happy to invite Dr. Mary Stella, research guide and assistant professor of English, to express the gratitude and appreciate everyone's contribution. Over to you, ma'am, for the vote of thanks.
So good evening to all. So on this momentous occasion, I stand here privileged and honored to extend heartfelt gratitude on behalf of the organizing committee of the 7-day national level online faculty development program. Our heartfelt thanks to Principal Dr. Jawahar Samuel for his unwavering support. I extend sincere thanks to Secretary Mr. Prem Kumar Rajasingh for his relentless dedication. Thank you, sir. A special note of gratitude to our esteemed resource person, Dr. Suresh Frederick, whose invaluable insights and expertise have enriched today's session. Your contribution is immensely appreciated, and we are honored to have your guidance throughout this program. Thank you, sir. I also want to express our deepest appreciation to our dedicated staff members whose tireless efforts behind the screen. Last but not least, I extend heartfelt thanks to all enthusiastic participants whose active engagement and eagerness to learn have made this session a rewarding experience for everyone involved. Thank you, each one of you, for your unwavering support and commitment, which has contributed immensely to the success of this session. We eagerly anticipate your continued participation and support throughout the duration of this faculty development program. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of the Department of PG and Research, happy to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the distinguished professors who participated in day 1 of faculty development program from across the states. We are grateful for all your valuable contributions and looking forward to continued collaboration tomorrow too at 10 a.m. Thank you all for joining today. Thanks to you, sir, again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you.